For thousands of years, indigenous tribes in South Africa used a small succulent plant for something strangely specific. Not visions, not rituals involving gods or spirits. Emotion. The plant was called Kanna, and according to early records, people would chew it before long hunts, difficult journeys, social gatherings, and periods of extreme stress. European explorers who encountered it in the 1600s didn't fully understand what they were seeing. The effects sounded subtle at first: increased calm, reduced fear, improved mood. But the deeper researchers looked into Kanna, the stranger it became. Because unlike most psychoactive plants, Kanna doesn't seem to pull people away from reality. If anything, people describe it as making them feel more emotionally inside reality. Kanna comes from a plant called Scaletium tortuosum, a dry-looking succulent native to South Africa. For generations, Khoisan communities traditionally fermented the plant before consuming it. Researchers still aren't entirely sure why fermentation mattered so much, but chemically, the process appears to alter the alkaloid profile of the plant significantly, especially compounds like mesembrine. And mesembrine is where things start becoming interesting. Because unlike many ancient psychoactive plants surrounded by mystical claims, Kanna's effects are measurable in surprisingly modern neurological ways. Mesembrine primarily affects serotonin systems in the brain, but not aggressively. People often describe the experience as emotionally disarming, like certain mental defenses quietly stop running in the background. Social anxiety decreases. Music feels unusually intimate. Conversations become emotionally fluid. One user online described Kanna as feeling emotionally uncrossed. Because the effects people report are often difficult to visualize, there are usually no hallucinations, no distortions, no dramatic ego death. Instead, users repeatedly describe subtle changes in emotional perception itself. The world feels softer, less hostile, less psychologically sharp around the edges. Researchers studying mesembrine eventually discovered something unusual. The compound doesn't only interact with serotonin reuptake, it also appears to affect PDE4 inhibition, a mechanism connected to stress regulation and emotional processing. And this may explain why Kanna often feels strangely clean compared to many modern mood-altering substances. Users frequently report a reduction in internal tension without emotional numbness. That distinction matters, because many people describe modern antidepressants as flattening emotional experience. Kanna reports often sound different. People don't usually describe feeling emotionally muted. They describe feeling emotionally open. And online, the same strange themes appear over and over again. People saying, "I suddenly wanted to talk to people again," or "music felt emotionally physical," or even, "I realized how tense I normally am all the time." That last one appears constantly in Kanna discussions. Not intense hallucinations, not mystical revelations, just the sudden awareness of how compressed modern consciousness normally feels. Kanna appears to interrupt that pattern temporarily, not by escaping reality, but by changing the nervous system's relationship to it. And in a strange way, that may be why Kanna unsettles some people. Not because the effects are overwhelming, because they're subtle enough to feel real. One longtime user described the experience in a way that stayed online for years afterward. He wrote, "It didn't feel like I became happier. It felt like something stopped blocking the feeling. And maybe that's the reason this strange desert plant survived for centuries. Not because it creates another reality, but because, for a brief moment, it changes the feeling of being inside this one."